Hi. Okay, so last couple of videos have been me playing Final Fantasy XIV. Now I'm gonna do something fun, and just tell you, because I just watched Jaden talk about her pets and all the crazy antics of owning a pet. Now, growing up, I have had on a level of 14 cats, not at once, by the way. Well, technically by at once, considering we lived on a farm and most of them were barn cats. 14 to 16 cats, give or take. And each of them had some pretty funny stories. And about 5 dogs, give or take. And again, each had their really funny stories. So I'm going to do the first story. And this was told to me by my mother and my grandfather. Mind you, my grandfather is no longer with us, and my mom is still alive. So, according to the story, and this is the story that I was told as a kid, we had a cat by the name of Mouser. Mouser used to sleep in the crib with me as a baby, and he was my, quote-unquote stuffed animal of choice, according to my parents. But Mouser loved me, I loved him. He died before I was like 3. So, according to the story, my parents, myself, were on vacation, and my grandparents decided to watch the cat. Granted, this story is mostly took place in my grandfather's garage, which he had left partially open so that Mouser could go outside and do his business out in the front yard, versus doing it in the cat box and having my grandma clean it up. Well, here it goes. One day, there was this god-awful noise coming from the garage, according to my grandfather. Mouser, who was this big, fat quilt of a cat, would corner other cats and sit on them. He didn't fight them. They would come in rearing for a fight. He'd just take one look at them and sit on top of them. This is exactly what happened. According to my grandfather, this is his story. We still have a little story of him with another cat, which we'll come to in a minute, named Putty. Now, he comes outside, and of course, Mouser is sitting on top of this giant black cat. And this cat is making all sorts of ruckus and noise, and my grandfather just looks at the cat, looks down at the other cat that's being squished, picks up the monster of Mouser, takes it inside, puts him down, walks to the kitchen, and says to my grandmother, "You will not believe what I just saw in our garage." And, of course, my grandmother, who was in on the story, said, What did you see?" "That dang cat was sitting on the neighbor's cat, trying to squish it." My grandfather, who is prone to exaggeration, that day was fully believed. And that was the story he told my mother when they came to pick up Mouser. And told my mom that she had better learn to control her cat. Kind of hard when you're on vacation. My grandmother said that she couldn't stop laughing after that one. And then we come to one of our other cats, which was a cat we had found. We had found 2 cats. This actually adds the cats up to 16, and that is White Guy. That it was his name, because he was a big white cat who was deaf, and Putty, who might as well have been deaf because of the way he acted. Both those cats were found around my school in Norman, Oklahoma. Our landlord actually did not care if we had pets. In fact, he didn't even care about pet deposit anyway, and we brought home not even aware if the cats were even house trained. They were, and that was kind of a relief, considering that Putty liked to pee on me, and he was fixed. Putty went to live with my grandparents, and my grandfather didn't understand why we called him Putty Tat. He was about to find out why. Putty had this very odd habit, and it was kind of a funny one, where he would fall asleep on basically my grandfather's Barcalounger, which was the ugliest thing in Sin. It was bright atomic orange. We don't know where the hell he bought it, but he bought it anyway just to annoy my grandmother. And the cat and him would sit in that chair, watch television, and fall asleep on each other. Doesn't really work with your grandmother around, but my grandmother just learned to live with it. And cover the chair with everything, including the kitchen sink, of blankets, trying to cover it up, because that was that ugly. But the cat had the habit of kicking off every single blanket on that Barcalounger. My mom came in one day from vacation, and Putty had passed away. According to my grandfather, he got hit by a car. Right. This is a cat that wouldn't go near the side of the road. My grandmother told the story that the cat decided to commit cat suicide by sleeping underneath the car. Again, we were kind of suspicious. We later found out from my grandfather when I was about 14 that Putty had died of liver cancer. Poor cat. But he went on to be the cat that actually peed on my grandmother's bed, and she absolutely had to tolerate him because he was a big ass. He was a bit of a jerk. His friend, white guy, stayed with us, and that cat was deaf, stone deaf. And he liked lying on the side of the road in Evergreen, in our little neighborhood, and listen to the cars drive by as it vibrated by the road. One of our neighbors, who was not aware that the cat was deaf, found him on the side of the road and thought he was dead. Came to the door flipping out as white guy, whoop, head up, walks back to the house. And my neighbor is flipping out and telling my mother that the cat is a demon. No, the cat's deaf, not a demon. Poor white. Then one day somebody picked him up and never brought him back. I guess they thought he was a stray, and we never saw him again. But we were kind of heartbroken because we put up missing cat posters, and we thought, like, he got hit by a car or eaten. Now we come to the story of the entire family of cats we have, which started with one cat by the name of Tiger. She was a... Oh, God, that story is going to be funny. This is a cat who had 4 litters in all. That, the first litter, we got to choose 2 kittens to stay with us, and that was Princess and Fuzzball. Never let a 5-year-old name a cat. That's my first lesson here to tell you. Do not let... My little sister named Fuzzball, and I feel bad for Fuzzball, because Fuzzball was a jerk. Now, this story involved my dad taking Princess and to get fixed. We lost for about half a year the carrier. It was in our garage, and yeah, we kind of lost track of it. So it kind of got buried under some boxes. So my dad couldn't find it. So he had to take the cat, covered in a blanket, to the vet. Dr. Winters, who was our vet for years, would fix stray cats for free. He counted our cats kind of as strays because we had so many of them and we ran a farm. So we kind of had barn cats, and Princess was one of them. Princess earned a secondary name from Dr. Winters because it was added to her profile. Princess Velcro. Because she attached herself to my dad's shirt. And my dad had to take the shirt off just so that they could fix the cat. So he had to sit there in the doctor's office without a shirt on because the cat... Because even though we had trimmed her claws, she still attached herself. My dad also had scratch marks on his chest because of the stupid cat. Well, I wouldn't say she was stupid, but oh my god, my dad had words about that cat. The other cat, Fuzzball, was the meanest thing we ever had. The funny thing is, we had told people, we don't have to worry about people breaking into our house. Why? Because they'd have to worry about the cat. The dogs aren't gonna help. Fuzzball would take out anybody who she decided was a threat. She was just that much of a jerk. She also bullied her nephew, who was this small cat by the name of Buster, who turned out to be quite big and kind of a pushover. Quite a bit. And how she passed away was death by electric car door. Garage door killed her. Again, she was old, she was partially deaf and blind. And yeah, that happened. Traumatized my mom to all hell and back. Because she came in and told me, and I had to listen to her cry for 2 hours over the cat that hated her. Now, the next cat is Princess's and Fuzzball's sister, Blacken. She was this pitch black cat, and you could tell who her dad was. He was a cat by the name of Chester who lived down the street. We lived in the mountains, so Blacken was pretty much the mountain cat. She was the huntress. She was the sweetest thing in the world, aside from the fact Buster brought my mom a live mouse just to impress her. We'll get to him in a minute. Now, Princess won over the most difficult person in the entire family. I mean, she was difficult. My grandma on my mom's side of the family was the most difficult person to deal with on a daily basis. Yet this woman absolutely loved Blacken to death. Blacken lived to the ripe old age of 26. Died in her sleep of old age. She lived very full life. She was also nicknamed Tenderizer by my ex-boyfriend. This is his story, so this is kind of funny. He sat down in our basement, and I hear him go, "Oh, hi, Blacken. How are you?" He picks her up, puts her in his lap, and I hear, "Ah, ooh, yee, ooh, ah, ew." I come out, and Blacken is kneading his legs, and he's like, "Her claws need to be trimmed." I'm like, what? We just trimmed those about a day ago. I can't tell. And she tenderized his legs. Her paws were like little meat tenderizers. But she was the friendliest cat you would ever meet. And she would respond to her name. Like, when I was little, nobody wanted her. She was the runt of the litter, and she was jet black. Nobody wanted her, and I loved her. And I picked her up one day and took her inside, and I said, "Mom, can we keep her?" And my mom's like, "Oh, well, nobody really wanted her. Her sister was adopted, and they just didn't want a little black kitten. So Blacken stayed with us for that long, and I was about in my 20s when she passed away." Now, Blacken, Fuzzballs had a couple kittens that stayed, Claw and Fig and Buster. They were from the same litter, but you could hardly tell. Claw was jet black, very, 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 very furry. Fig, or Figaro, was the same way. Very, very fuzzy. And we had to actually cut mats out of them on a daily basis because anytime we tried to actually brush them, they'd attack us. Yeah, these were mountain cats, alright. They were jerks. Princess was the same way. They were barn cats, okay? No getting around it. Except we treated them like they were house cats and indoor-outdoor cats. To us, they were our pets. Now, Buster, we had to keep inside. Because of something that he did. When he was a kitten, my parents saved him from the cold, and while my dad was rubbing him back to life, my mom made the comment, "You're gonna knock a few screws loose." Oh God, they did. They did knock some screws loose. He was a very slow cat. He was a little dopey. But in his stories, he also was the loudest of our cats. You could be on one end of the house and you could hear him. It was this big, loud, row, row. Like, oh my God, Buster, shut up. He got locked in the basement of our house when we moved into Littleton, and one night you would hear ba-boom, 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 and he was pacing up and down the stairs. We opened the door and he's like, "Oh, hi," walks away. When he was younger, when we were living in the mountains, he brought my mother a gift that she definitely didn't want. He brought her a live mouse. He didn't kill it. He brought a live mouse and let it loose in our house. And lucky for us, it was killed right away by Fuzzball, but Buster looked like I did something great. Yeah, that was one of his great ones. Then he started bringing us voles. Voles are like a relative of a mole, except they like to dig up my mother's rose bush. So my mother, one morning, woke up to a vole being dragged into the house. And Buster looking very proud of himself for bringing that in. Buster was, like I said, slow. When Princess had her kittens in our basement, he decided he would be their big brother. Someone should have told him that kittens climbing on you and chewing on you does not count you as a brother. But he loved them anyway. He was a very, very sweet cat. We don't know what happened to him. But when he was, like I said, this is another part of the story that's actually pretty funny. He actually could adapt the most with other cats. In fact, he absolutely loved other cats. We brought home this kitten that we were actually paid to take. Because the people at this pet store just could not get a home for this kitten, who was this black and white terror who was beating up the kittens in the window. My mom was like, "Oh, he's so cute." The owner of Pet City, who takes in cats from rescues to adopt out, just couldn't find a home for this kitten and said, "Can you take him?" He paid us $20 to take this cat. And we took him. We brought him home and named him Sylvester. This cat disrupted everybody, including Miss Torpedo, aka Tiger, who looked like a cat with a tiny little head, tiny little feet, fat body, and a pencil of a tail that looked like she was when she ran, she looked like a torpedo. Sylvester chased her all over the house. Sylvester we just didn't know what to do about Sylvester. He was just a downright terror. One day I was fast asleep and I got bit on my shin. I don't know what it was. I just lifted up the covers and there was Sylvester under the bed covers, chewing on my feet. I was looking at him going, "Oh, it's you. Get out from under there." No, he wouldn't move. Little shit. Excuse my language. We actually called him that for a while. Sylvester had a lot of nicknames. Fluffy Terror, Terror of Urban Street, Sylvester, the other one, because he liked kittens to play with, and Terror. The Terror of Urban Street was definitely what he was called, because one night I fell asleep and my mother said, "Didn't you hear the cat noise outside?" I opened my window, I opened the blinds, and I saw white fur all over our front yard. That night, someone had left Sylvester out, and he beat up the neighbor's white blind cat down the street. Yeah, we kind of couldn't keep Sylvester. We had to keep Sylvester inside after that. The other thing that Sylvester did is he had a fear of open spaces, as in he had to be underneath covers or something if there was somebody he didn't know. We were showing our house in Austin, and this little girl walks up to me. I mean, I was walking into my room to get something out of my closet, and she says, "There's a weird lump on your bed, on your parents' bed." And this is, of course, a 7-year-old telling me this. "Oh, that's our cat." "Why doesn't he come out?" Fear of open spaces. And you. Sylvester could not stand children. He could handle my neighbor's kid, Maggie. No way, no way. This cat could handle that. But if it was a 7-year-old trying to pet him, he was terrified. I said, "Well, wait a second. Just a second." I took the 7-year-old into the office room that we had, and there was Blacken. I go, "Pet that." And she's like, "Why?" "Blacken's friendlier." So this mother who's looking for her child is petting this black cat, and the black cat's going, "Meow, meow." And Mom's like, "That cat's really friendly." "Yeah, your kid wanted to pet the unfriendly one." Which is the unfriendly one? The lump in the bed. Sylvester, like I said, was a very playful cat. And then, years later, he ended up dying. He ended up beating cancer and getting killed by a mountain lion. At least he got one of the goals of his life situated. That was the last of our cats, except for Blacken, who died at age 26. Now, we get to the current cats. Now, Kurtz, it's spelled Kurtz, was named after Kurtz Weber from Full Metal Panic. Kurtz, I have 100 stories about some of his misadventures, and some of them are pretty downright hilarious, including the fact that this is a cat who took women's underwear and stuffed it in the couch. Preferably clean underwear, thank goodness. But yeah, he would stuff it in the couch. He also stole bras, boxers. We found about 3 sets of boxers. One from our roommate, and one we don't know who the frick it was, because it was neither Donnie's or Lee's. Or the 2 other roommates. We don't know whose underwear that cat stole. He was a little bit of a klepto. Now, Kurtz absolutely loved my nephew. And my nephew, to this day, I just remember when he was a baby, my sister's ex-husband went to pick the baby up, and we were like, "Oh, where the hell is Kurtz?" "I don't know." And Lee and I, my fiance and I, were visiting and Kurtz had to stay with my parents due to one of the cats that we were staying. My fiance's mother's cat, Fish or Chip, were sick. So one night, my sister's ex went in to pick up the baby, and I hear the most awful scream, and my fiance is bounding up the stairs, going, "Oh God, oh God, this can't be good." And I see my sister's ex holding his arm, and there is like this bites, and it didn't break skin, thank God, but he is yelling about how evil my cat is, and my fiance looks over, and he didn't like my sister's ex, and the cat is like circling around my fiance's legs, and he picks the cat up and goes, "Good boy, we don't like him either." And I hear my sister's ex yelling that he wants to kill the cat, and my fiance said, "Okay, you're the one that has to deal with Nagi when this is over." Takes the cat downstairs, and my mother is following the two of them, laughing. She could not stop laughing because she could not believe Kurtz would attack anybody. And I said, "Oh, my cat did not like my fiance, but at that moment when he was doing that, he loved him." Anyway.